It's the Easter edition of Scorecard here on Citi TV. Benjamin Nketia here. Glad to be here as always. It's been an interesting weekend of sports, from the big game between Liverpool and Arsenal. That was a good one. Served really hot at Anfield. And then also there was Man United taking on Everton Football Club. United have been shaky for a bit, but they needed to respond. Chelsea had Frank Lampard, our Lampard, my Lampard, everybody's Lampard, returning to the helm of affairs. It started on the false note for him. We'll talk about that as well. Plus, when you go to the Championship, Burnley Football Club have been promoted back to the Premier League at the first time of asking, and it's been done by Vincent Kompany, former Manchester City captain. They are on song, I think, for a record point haul or something of the sort. They've been scoring goals for fun, and they have the best defense in the league as well. So really brilliant work there being done by Vincent Kompany. So all that to digest on Scorecard today. Let's take a quick break. When we come, I'll introduce to you my guest, and then we can start talking. Welcome to Scorecard here on Citi TV. Our text and WhatsApp lines will be on your screens there. Chelsea fans especially, I want to hear from you tonight. Our friends from the Gambia, from Senegal, from Nigeria, let me hear from you guys as well. What exactly have your sentiments been regarding the rehiring of Lampard, even if it's on an interim basis? Arsenal fans, is this draw against Liverpool a sign of doom or a sign of bad things to come? Because now you have that outstanding game against Manchester City. So there's a lot to digest on the show. Susu Graham and Gabriel Affair from Citi Sports are in the building. Gentlemen, good to have you.
Thank you.
Looking sharp, looking sharp. Let's get into Premier League action. I mean, before we even get into the specifics of the games, it's been a pretty crazy weekend of football. That Liverpool-Arsenal game, a really good spectacle. But what has caught your eye so far this weekend?
Oh, for me, I was actually more surprised that Wolves were able to get a result. I think that was the biggest surprise. I thought the new manager bounce and Frank Lampard will really boost Chelsea.
The new manager bounce didn't bounce.
Yeah, it didn't bounce. The basketball was deflated, you know. It was a difficult one for them.
Yeah.
So, so it was mostly that. I think that was the standout result for me this weekend, that Chelsea didn't get the result. I thought that they would bounce back. Yeah, so that was, and maybe Erling Haaland's second goal. That's another standout.
I think
those two
I
things.
think that Mateus Cunha goal, that goal that
classic
consigned Chelsea to defeat, that was a brilliant goal.
Yeah,
Gabby, just quick thoughts.
Well, I think what caught my attention was the game that just ended today, Liverpool-Arsenal, because I was looking forward to how Arsenal will fare. You know, the last time they won, there was dated back in 2012, and that's been almost like, 11 years. So it was a huge test for Mikel Arteta to pass yet again, in as much as here Liverpool have not been on some good of best forms, but I think that it was always Anfield. So I was just looking forward to see how they pan out. And of course, also Haaland's, the guy just can't keep week in, week out. He just gets on the score sheet. So I think that these are the two things that
the 10th or
that
11th player to score 30 Premier League goals. So
with quite a number of games left on the show.
And you know the
record is what, 36?
34.
34.
34.
But even then, you have to remember that was when the Premier League was 24 teams, I believe, 22 teams. So they played a few extra games. So they played about 40-something games. But the record for a 38-game season is 32 from Mohamed Salah. So I think Salah's record is
on the verge of falling.
Yeah, and I think Shearer's record too, and it's very, because that is also his first season in the Premier League. So I think that will be coming very
made
soon.
nonsense of all the records. Let's get to Old Trafford, where Manchester United have made that ground sort of a fortress in recent times. They were up against Everton. Now, Sean Dyche says that Everton are not focused on a relegation battle. He says that they are focused on getting up the table. So a little bit of a mentality shift there. Let's get to the highlights of that game. United did dominate that one. Enjoy. So a bit of a technical hitch there. We are unable to bring you the full highlights of that particular game. But United eventually winning that game by 2-0. Pretty comfortable win. Pelted Everton with shots from every corner. In the end, the accuracy was a bit suspect, but clean sheet.
Yeah, and it goes to show that there's still some value in home games, especially for the bigger teams when they are playing against weaker teams. You've seen that teams in the bottom half of the table, they tend to struggle more on the road. They get most of their points at home. So we've seen even United, if you look at the table, the teams who are currently in the top 8 or top 9, I don't think they've won away at any of those teams. But you see that at home, they are consistently getting results. They've beaten Arsenal, they've beaten Man City, they've beaten Liverpool. So their home results are there, but their away results seem to be a bit of a problem for them. So when they are at Old Trafford, they seem very comfortable. I think the only worry is Marcus Rashford. I think he went off injured. It remains to be seen how long he'll be out. But considering the form he's been in and how he's been driving their season, a long-term injury to him, even if he misses 3-4 weeks, it could be disastrous. So they need to hope it's not too serious. They need to hope he comes back soon. Because if that doesn't happen, it could be very difficult. Because with all due respect to Sancho and Anthony and Wout, they are not really pulling their weight. Martial is still picking up. He's now coming back from
I was
injury.
just about to ask you about him. He came off the bench and scored for United. Thoughts on him? You think he still has a future at the club?
I mean, if you look at their striking options right now, he's way better than Wout. And the thing is, if we are being honest, we know Vegas was brought in to be a backup. Yeah. I think the plan was for Martial to start.
Vegas is even on loan, actually.
Exactly. I think the plan was for Martial to start. And considering that Cristiano Ronaldo had left and the amount of money spent in the summer, there wasn't enough money to bring in a top quality striker, which is why they went for someone they thought could be a decent backup in Vegas. And it's not really worked out as man would have hoped. You know, he's ended up playing in midfield. Yeah. He occupies space and makes it easier for the other attackers to play. Let me not say the strikers, the other attacking players to play. But you would hope that he gets some goals too, and that has been a problem. So I think when Martial comes back, he offers a bit of both. He can score himself, he can hold up the ball, he can create for others. So I guess Martial starting and starring up front was their plan A. And his injury record has been a problem, which means in the end, United will have to bring in another striker. And I think demote him rather to be their backup because he's not reliable enough to be a first-choice striker.
Anthony Martial. Just quick thoughts on Everton. I was a little surprised by them. They almost seemed like they were defeated from the get-go. They didn't put in much of an effort, and that's very unlike a Sean Dyche team.
I mean, it's Old Trafford. Like Sisi said, you would always expect that the home teams would thin up. When they are playing at home because they feel very comfortable playing there. And also on the back of United being on a very bad form in some few games, they needed to turn up. And it was always going to be difficult for Sean Dyche's Everton. Yes, in as much as he's coming to change their current status on the league log, relegation expect, but it would always be difficult for you to play at Old Trafford. So I wasn't really surprised with the scoreline. I think that they were able to hold United to at a point. They kept them at bay a bit, but look, you would always have the experienced players or the quality coming to bear for United. So I think that was a very good shift for them. What is interesting for me to say is that I just want to see how they fare without, especially in the part of United, how they fare without Marcus Rashford, since it's been the only goal outlet for them. I don't know who would step up for them. So I think that, it was a very good one. Everton would just not be the happiest of the two teams.
Well, let's get to that game between Wolves and Chelsea. It was at the Molineux, and like I said, it was the Frank Lampard return. So that's how it was going to go. We thought that it was always going to be a difficult game, but maybe Lampard was good to start off well. New manager bounce and all, but like we said, it didn't play out. Good goal scored by Wolves. In the end, they picked up all 3 points. They themselves need as many points as they can get. Let's get to the highlights of that one. See if we can bring you that one. But let's just quickly talk through that one. Lampard is back. Instead of Chelsea showing some life, this was a very tepid performance from them.
Yeah, it looks like the new manager effect has not taken hold yet. And that was part of my problem with the timing of the sacking of Graham Potter. And I felt the same way about Leicester. And there was another team that people were suggesting they would sack the manager. I can't quite remember. And I was talking about that. Look, the timing. If you are at this stage of the season, a sacking is very difficult. So the new manager comes in. There's no time. They can't implement their methods. The last international break was really the moment. Yes, David Moyes. It was David Moyes I was thinking about. That the last international break was really the moment. If you wanted your manager gone, you get rid of them. So that the new manager comes in, there's a bit of a period he can adjust. But if the games are coming week in, week out, and if you're also like West Ham, where you're in Europe, it means you don't even have your midweek breaks, you know, to kind of pick up what the coach is trying to teach you. So it becomes very difficult. And Chelsea will have the same problem because Chelsea have a game on Tuesday, Wednesday? I can't remember which day, but the Champions League is back. We are playing our quarter-final ties Tuesday and Wednesday. So if you're Chelsea, you have this performance. there's not even time to assess. It's already Real Madrid are coming. Let's get to it. So
you don't get even a lot of training in between.
Yeah, sacking a manager when you have this many games coming at this point of the season, I don't see how it will be that they can change things up. That's why I thought maybe the new manager bounce, maybe you let them play with a bit more freedom. Just say, look, you're a bit, too patient on the ball. Just be a bit more free. Take a few more risks. We didn't really see that. So for me, if he doesn't even just make those tiny micro changes, because I think Potter's system was solid. It just wasn't exciting. It just wasn't expansive because they had one of the better defenses in the league. We've always spoken about it, but it was the goal scoring that was the problem. So you would think that Lampard would give them a bit more, kind of tell them that take more risk, be a bit more free, and worry about the counter-attacks later. But we didn't really see that. So very unassured performance, and it doesn't bode well for them against Real Madrid.
Unassured performance, indeed. Talk to me about the lack of strikers. So we saw previous managers employ a false nine in Havertz. Lampard comes in and he's doing the same thing. What's wrong with the strikers at Chelsea?
I mean, Ben, he started it. He started with the false nine thing with Havertz. I've always said that, look, Havertz doesn't thrive in that role. And the Havertz I watched at Bayer Leverkusen, he was more deployed in a 10. I think the closest he's gone to playing with a striker was more of like a second striker.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I always say that I don't know what the managers see that we don't see in terms of when you have a player who is best fit for a certain role, and you try and deploy him in a role where he feels very uncomfortable.
Maybe he feels the natural players in that role are not good enough.
I honestly believe that it's more about the chance creation and ball retention. I think when you have Havertz who has like that kind of more midfield skill
He's a hybrid between the forward and the playmaker.
You put him up front, you keep the ball better and you create more chances. But in the converse, you leave out a more proven finish. Because remember, the first striker to fall victim to this was Tammy Abraham.
Yeah, true.
We saw that Timo Werner was playing more of
Tammy went to Roma and we saw that he wasn't so bad after all.
And Timo Werner at least was playing off the left and was scoring from the wing. But I think in central areas, I think teams now want a striker who's a bit more secure on the ball. So you look at Gabriel Jesus for Arsenal, a good example. I don't think he's that efficient or reliable in front of goal. But what he offers in creating play and making things happen for his teammates is... So I think that's where managers see Havertz's value, but his finishing has been atrocious. Sorry to cut you off.
You see, for me, one problem I have is when he's being played in that position is that I feel he's very slow for my liking. Because, yes, if you want to have him playing as your false nine, it means that he has to be a bit very mobile to move into spaces and create that spaces for maybe other players to move into. But you find him very slow sometimes on the ball, and I don't know why they keep playing. You look at Chelsea's bench. There's a proven striker there in Aubameyang. And I think that, yes, in as much as he's aged though, but he comes with experience.
He was brought on yesterday.
Yeah.
And I would say he was better, but he put himself about better. Like almost like
gave a decent shift.
He knew that section of the pitch better than the others who were there before.
Exactly my point. So you see, and he clearly wasn't even looked at under Potter.
Yeah.
That sums it up. So I'm just hoping going forward by Lampard, he just give more opportunities to a very natural number 9 in Aubameyang, because look, Chelsea have been all over the place. They don't bite enough when they.
I tell Chelsea something, right? They should hand us Datro Fofana. I mean Liverpool. I know David Datro Fofana. I know how good he is.
I've seen him
play.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. And I've mentioned this a number of times on the show. Maybe it's how much he came for. How much they are paying him. They don't. I
think also where he's coming from from the Swedish or the Norwegian league.
But you know, with what just about 9 games too. I think that if you give him chances, the young man has something to prove. Yes, in as much as Chelsea's the season is all over for them on the domestic scene, he comes in. I think he's going to give a decent outing.
I think Fofana. I think next season, if he goes to a decent team in the Championship, he'll do very well, and I think that will help.
Even a lower tier Premier League team, like a newly promoted team, could use a player like that. So
I think in a newly promoted team, sometimes the chances are a bit harder to come by. The service is not regular.
Right.
So if he plays maybe for a team that finished in the top half of the Championship this season, and maybe they want to push for promotion, it will be a good environment because they'll be playing more attacking football. The chances will come. And I think playing for a lower team doesn't prepare you as much for playing for a higher level team, because you are not getting chances. What you have to do to get chances. And I think that's what happens with a lot of newly promoted strikers, where it looks like they are scoring a lot in the Championship. When they come to the Premier League, they are not scoring as much, because if you are a good team in the Championship, you get 3-4 chances a game.
True.
So those 2 or 3 you waste, your team can live with it. But when you come to a Premier League and you're getting 1 chance every 2 games, maybe 2 chances every 3 games, and you miss 2 chances in a row, the confidence goes down. So I think sometimes you have to also manage this. Maybe if he goes to a Belgium and plays for a top team there, something like that, I think those type of loans would be more useful than playing for a bad team and struggling for chances. That's how I see it.
Let's take a break here. Let's take a break here on the show. When we come back, we'll bring you a few of the highlights and then we'll get into more talk. There are a few more Premier League games we need to look at. That Arsenal-Liverpool game was absolutely tasty. We'll have that for you as well. So let's just take a quick break. When we come back, Scorecard, we'll continue. Welcome back to Scorecard here on Citi TV. Let's get to the highlights of that Chelsea versus Wolves game. Wolves beating Chelsea by 1-0. Big 3 points for the guys who are trying to rack up as many points as possible. Frank Lampard's return as well. Check this one out. So Chelsea Football Club still remaining in the bottom half of the table. Unfamiliar territory for them, really. Let's get to another game that was absolutely spicy. I predicted it, and it played out exactly like that. It was Tottenham Hotspur taking on Brighton and Hove Albion. Now, remember that Brighton have European ambitions. They've been playing above themselves this season. Roberto De Zerbi and Stellini they got into a bit of a, I don't know if you call it an altercation, but, I mean, De Zerbi was incensed. He was all over the place. In the end, the 2 of them got sent off. But that game had all the attitude you wanted. They had all the drama you wanted. Check it out. Tottenham Hotspur, Brighton and Hove Albion. A touch of a master, really, because I saw the same chance presented to another striker this same week. Was Gallagher, I think. I mean, he wasn't a striker, but same opportunity, same position, absolutely scuffed it. Harry Kane made it look so easy. 2-1 it ended, but Brighton will not be happy with this game.
No, they definitely won't be. I think they did create opportunities. Unfortunately for them, those goals were rightly disallowed. I think where they have reason to be upset was Højbjerg stepped on Mitoma, and Mitoma fell. And Villarreal checked it and decided not to give a penalty. And later, Howard Webb, the head of PGMLO, the refereeing organization, did call Brighton to apologize for their mistake. So they admitted they made a mistake. And that's where Brighton will feel aggrieved, because if they had got a penalty, I believe it was 1-1 then, or, I believe it was 1-1 then, they could have taken the lead and gotten the results. But in terms of the disallowed goals, totally, it was, I mean, once it hits your hand and you score, or it hits the hand and goes in, I think those are clear cuts. It's not, if the funny thing is, if that hits McAllister's arm, and let's say, gone to another player and they scored, it would have been allowed. It's just the way the rules are. So very unfortunate for Brighton. But look, they played well. We expected that. They always play well.
I think this was a game they could have won.
Yeah, exactly. It was just, I think, a bit of inexperience and just the efficiency of Spurs. And it's what we saw a lot last season, which we haven't seen this season. Son and Kane just being efficient and taking chances that most people can't take. Because if you look at Son's goal, that's a typical Son goal. The fact that once he gets,
it's not even a chance.
It's not a chance, but he makes it a chance and he makes it a goal. Even Harry Kane's one, I think you have been a bit unfair on Gallagher, in my opinion, because most players, it's a very difficult chance to take. And
you know what's crazy about Kane's goal, right? About 10 seconds before it happened, when the play was developing, he had raised his, he had just gestured to.
He called for the pass.
He had just called for it, just like put it in front of me, put it in front of me. So he knew exactly what he wanted to do before the ball even came to him.
Because if you're Harry Kane and get the ball in the 18-yard box, you are going to put it on target. And I think the Brighton defenders made a bit of a mistake. They pushed too far back. I think if one of them had been a bit closer, and I think that's another thing that was different about Gallagher, the defender was a bit closer. I think the closest defender was about 10 yards away in Harry Kane's case. But in Gallagher's case, he was about 5 yards away. I think if the defender, at least one defender or one Brighton player is a bit closer, Harry Kane can't put that ball, because I think the amount of space, he could pick where he wanted to put in the goal. And they were all close to the keeper, so it didn't really help. So not to say that it was an easy chance. It wasn't. But I think that was a slight mistake from the Brighton standpoint that could have swung the game in their favor. But look, when you look at the goals they conceded, me and my statistics, man, those are not high-quality chances that if you give away, you expect to concede. It just so that happens that good players punish the least mistake. And that's just what happened to Brighton. It's very unfortunate.
Are you tipping them to pick up one of the European spots?
European spots for sure. Champions League, no. I think Champions League is a bit too
Which
far.
Which is more likely, I mean, looking at the table, Conference League or Europa League?
I believe
The Europa League.
it also depends on
Because
who
there's
wins the FA
Newcastle,
Cup.
Tottenham, United in that mix. There's Brighton, Fulham, also
I
Aston Villa.
I think Fulham, Villa, and Brentford are a bit too far back in my opinion. But I think Brighton, because there's also the FA Cup, there's a possibility they could win that. So let's also watch that. But it also depends on the winner of the FA Cup, because 7th could also become a European spot if United or City, who are going to finish in the European places, win the FA Cup. It does become. But I think who are City playing? I believe City are playing a not so favoured team, and United are playing Brighton. I can't quite remember. It slipped my mind. So if Brighton or the other team win the FA Cup, they get the European place. So it could work out.
Still a really good chance for them. Talk to me a little bit about Tottenham and how they are holding up post Antonio Conte. Have you enjoyed what you've seen? I mean, 3 points here against Brighton, contentious 3 points, but 3 points nonetheless.
Well, I mean, I didn't see Stellini struggling because, look, in Conte's absence during his gallbladder surgery, I mean, Stellini was doing good. So I was just expecting him to continue from where he left off. I mean, typical Spurs, sometimes you expect them to take the lead in certain games, but they flout their lines and they just settle for a point or that kind of thing. So I'm not really surprised about the way he's shaped up the team so far, or is the way he's picked up the team. Or
a draw and a win?
Yes. I think he's not fared bad. I think that it's just a... if he's able to continue like this, I think that he'll probably get Spurs into the top 4. It's difficult because... Newcastle are there. United...
Newcastle look like they are really up for this final stretch of the season.
So I think that Spurs just need to keep up with some bit of consistency. I don't know how many home games they have. If they can really... capitalize on that and pick some good wins, I think that will be helpful for them. But, I mean, so far, so good for Stellini.
Well, I think staying afloat is what's most important for them at this point, not picking up injuries, just trying to get as many points as possible. They have their destiny in their own hands. That's the most important thing for them. Let's get to the big game of the weekend. That was between Liverpool and Arsenal. That game was at Anfield. Roberto Firmino has now become the player with the most goals, 8 goals in 8 appearances, most goals without a penalty against Arsenal. So some record of his own there. He came off the bench to level things. It was an exciting game, a game of 2 halves, really. Let's check out that particular one. The electronics up against us today. Another hitch there. I was hoping we could see that penalty miss and then the Roberto Firmino header that led to the Liverpool equalizer. But a game of 2 halves, really. Liverpool, I haven't seen Liverpool like that in a while. Dominated Arsenal from beginning to finish in that second half, but Arsenal will feel, I mean, should they be happy with this draw? Should they feel let down by this result?
I think because of the last minute where Martinelli could have slipped Saka in, they will feel they could have won this game, but on the balance of it, they were lucky to get a draw. Because I always say, let's also look at the score is the most important stat, but if we look at the other stats, it can tell us a story. Look, Liverpool recorded an XG of 4. To Arsenal's 1.4, and combined, that's about the 3rd most in any Premier League game this season in terms of XG. But the highest XG Arsenal have faced all season is 2. So an XG of 4, you would have expected Liverpool to score 4 goals.
There was a Darwin Núñez one-on-one chance that he wasted.
Those are the type of things. So if you look at the numbers, Arsenal got away with it. Salah had 20 touches in the Arsenal box, the most by any player in the opposition box in a Premier League game this season. And
20 touches.
And look, this is against the league leading team. That should tell you how much Liverpool raised their game, because we've seen Liverpool this season. They are not a title contender. They are not even a top 4 contender. But they raised their game to the point that they battered Arsenal in the second half. And that's, if you look at the way the match played out, the first half, they could not cope. But in the second half, they were all over Arsenal. Arsenal really... They showed up in the second half. And when I mean show up, I mean they were there physically, but they didn't come to play football. They came to be like training cones for Liverpool. That's how bad it was. And they were lucky to get away with their points. So for me, I think it's a great performance by Liverpool. Unfortunately, they didn't get the results. But also a good result for Arsenal, because you get battered like that and you at least have the points. So worst case scenario, City win their game in hand. It's still 3 points. You can still, if you get a result at the Etihad, you draw, you still have that 3 points gap. You win, it goes back, it goes to 6 points. So things are still okay.
Just let me
for them.
hold you to that particular game. I mean, what do you think it will come down to? Individual quality, in-game management, like Mikel Arteta, Pep Guardiola all over again?
I think this game will be a great game because Arsenal are a bit better away from home, in my opinion. They're a bit more efficient away from home. And Man City are picking up a winning streak. They've won about 8 or 9 in a row. So I think they'll meet at the right point because I think they meet as even though it's a replayed game, it will be about the 34th, 35th game of the season.
Yeah.
So it will be very close to crunch time. So for all you know, that one of them might even drop points and change things up. So we might even go into that game and they are level on points. We might go into that game, Arsenal are 6 points ahead. It can be 2 points. So anything can happen between there and then. It's very close to crunch time. So it will be a great spectacle. But today, Arsenal were lucky. They were a bit poor. But their first half kind of gave them the cushion to kind of survive the second half onslaught. And that's the thing. If you're a good team and you take the chances that came. Because I think apart from one chance Gabriel Jesus missed, I don't know, one chance he missed, I think Arsenal took their chances very well compared to Liverpool who didn't. And I'll say even though Mo Salah had a lot of touches in the box, his finishing was abysmal. Aside the goal, he could have scored 2 or 3 and he really let the team down.
Mohamed Salah letting the team down. Is he still up to the same quality of player that we've seen in past years? Because, again, big contracts don't come with big returns.
He scored about 20 goals this season. Let's be fair to him. I think he had
Fair
a
enough.
bad game today, but he's
had a
been
good
scoring.
season?
Yeah, he scored about 20 goals and about 10, 12 assists. Look, the numbers are good. It just hasn't translated, but the numbers are good.
Into team success.
Yeah.
Well, fair enough.
Yeah.
Quick thoughts on Arsenal. Is that a performance Arteta should be worried about? Big game, you go 2 goals up, manage to crumble, and almost you're hanging on by a thread by the time the game is over. Now, like we've mentioned, this is the most important part of the season. Do they have the mental fortitude to navigate this?
Well, I look at the first half. I think that is where Arsenal should have won the game because I don't know what the pep talk from Mikel Arteta was to the boys in the second half. Because second half, like Jesus said, they came on the pitch, but they were not playing the football. And it just allowed Liverpool
It seemed like they were hiding.
Yeah, it just allowed Liverpool to grow confidence with what they were doing. And that is where the penalty and all the second goals came in.
So I think about 15 minutes where they didn't get out of their house.
Yeah, it was just intense from Liverpool, and clearly they knew what they were. I think that was wrong for Mikel Arteta. I was just hoping that they continued from where they left off, and the first half kept on with their style of play. I think Arteta in his mind, when the scoreline was 2-1, was to probably keep the scoreline that way and just exit Anfield with a 3 points. But look, it is Anfield. Like I said, in as much as Liverpool will be in a very bad form, Anfield will always be Anfield. You get the fans rallying.
To be honest, their home form has been so much better than
exactly.
It's their away form that's really
that has
them
been patchy.
season.
Yeah, so Anfield will always
they've lost
be
only
Anfield.
1 game at home.
Yeah,
and
so
they've lost like how many? They've won only 3 away, just for comparison.
Yeah,
they've been really poor away from home.
So I think that was a very wrong approach from Mikel Arteta. Speaking about whether his players do have the mental toughness to continue, I'm not too sure of what Mikel Arteta would.
We saw them crumble out of the Europa League.
Yeah,
to a Sporting team that was really young.
Exactly, and you see, this is the time where if you want to pick him and Arteta, that's Pep. Pep knows how to do this very well, coupled with the squad depth he has.
He's been in this situation
at this moment.
a couple
So
of times.
the players themselves do also have that experience. But for Mikel Arteta's team, you cannot pinpoint as much as 7 or 8 players who have that mental toughness.
Gabi, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Look, they are playing Bayern Tuesday.
Yeah.
Is it Tuesday? I don't know the exact day. Sorry, I don't know.
They are playing
Tuesday,
Man
Wednesday.
City in the Champions League.
They are playing Man City are playing Bayern on midweek.
Yeah.
They'll play Bayern after the weekend again. Do you and they might even progress. Do you think that might affect their weekend game that they are playing between the two? And they'll have a difficult game and might not be able to pick up their 4 points.
No, I don't think
and
so.
they also have the FA Cup as well.
Yeah.
So it means that one of their weekend games will be postponed and they'll have to play 2 games in 1 week. Whereas Arsenal are going to be playing weekend.
Yeah.
I think
that puts more pressure on Manchester
I think
City.
until they play City, they'll be playing only on the weekend. Do you think that will play a part?
But you look at the squad depth per pass. I think that you can't compare that to City. You can't compare that to Arsenal because Arsenal cannot boast of that squad depth. Yes, Pep can chop and change his team as and when suit the kind of opponents they are coming up against. And you always find a way to navigate his way through. You get it. So I don't see them.
You don't think the extra
crumbling?
game?
Nah, I don't think so. I think that.
And I also think that they are used to this sort of thing.
Yeah,
It's
City have been in this situation a lot of times. They know how to get through it.
It's not that I don't believe they are not used to it, but I believe that considering how well Arsenal are playing, even that one draw that you could get, because you know Liverpool were also playing as many games, that one draw, those two draws, that might be a bit because of fatigue, the extra game.
I mean, it's definitely
it will matter more
because some influential players will definitely play across those games.
Yeah, exactly. It just matter a bit more because Arsenal are less likely. Like I've always said, if Arsenal are playing against a team that are probably in the bottom half, that they are better than, they'll win that game. Yeah. But in City's case, you feel that sometimes they might, maybe because of the extra games, there might be one or two games where they should win that
it's very possible.
Maybe fatigue setting in.
Exactly. That's the only reason I'm asking
it's
about
It's very possible. Games. And I mean, for Arsenal, on the issue of mental fortitude, I think that's where people like Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko come in, because you have been in a championship locker room or dressing room before. You know how it feels. You know what the conversations were like then. It's up to you to communicate these to your teammates and say, hey, I know the nerves are a bit up the ceiling right now, but this is when you actually need to calm down. If you have a story or two to share, that's when Jesus and Zinchenko come in. That's where your championship DNA kicks in. So I hope they can manage to even it out, because, hey, it's a very interesting world there. Manchester City will be smashing records if they win another Premier League title. Let's get on to another Manchester City affiliate in Vincent Kompany. He has led his Burnley side back into the Premier League after they were relegated last season. They were up against Middlesbrough this weekend. They won by 2-1 away from home. They are the best attacking side in the league and are the best defensive side in the league as well. That's how much balance they have. Let's check out the highlights on this one. So Vincent Kompany's Burnley, they look nothing like Sean Dyche's Burnley. Nothing at all. Very contrasting styles of football. It's gotten them success.
I think that's the biggest achievement Kompany has, not just getting promoted. The fact that he's managed to overhaul what we know Burnley as.
For the last decade.
Yeah, for the last, and Sean Dyche was coach for years. You know, he got them promoted, got relegated. He wasn't sacked. They understood that, look, he did a good job. He came back and he made them a solid Premier League team for years until last season where things finally fell off. And look, when you look at Burnley, even in the time they were in the Premier League, they didn't spend a lot of money.
Nope.
Their purse strings were very tight. So after a while, eventually, it shows. When you don't spend money, after a while, you can't progress. And we are seeing it in a way with Southampton.
Tactics and coaching will only get you to a certain point.
And we are seeing in a certain way with Southampton. If you keep on selling your best players, or you are not renewing the squad quick enough, and you're in a Premier League where teams in mid-table and the relegation zone are competing with Champions League teams for players and the matching price. Because look, just AC Milan as an example. AC Milan wanted Charles de Ketelaere. Leeds offered more money to Club Brugge. Probably offered him a similar or better salary, but the prestige of playing for AC Milan won out. January transfer window, Bournemouth and AC Milan again are competing for Nicolo Zaniolo. Yeah. If you think about it, AC Milan are playing a Champions League quarter-final this midweek, and they are competing with teams who are in a relegation battle for players. It should just tell you how much money is being spent by Premier League teams. So if you don't keep up, you will not be able to. And that is probably why they want Kompany to play a more expansive style, use the players, quote-unquote, better. Yeah. But there were some ownership changes at Burnley that didn't help. Maybe the new owners will be a bit more forthcoming with spending money and that kind of stuff. So it remains to be seen how they adjust their squad going into the Premier League season.
It's interesting that Kompany wanted Majid Ashimera. I remember at the beginning of the campaign. Yeah. I'm not sure how that played out, but eventually Majid ended up staying. We'll see if he will renew his interest in him now that they have gained promotion.
It will be good to see him in the Premier League, though.
Yeah, it will be good to see Ashimera in the Premier League. But just quick thoughts on Kompany and Burnley and the work they've done. Like I said, it's even more impressive for me that they have the best defense in the league as well.
Yeah, I'm really surprised at the way quickly the players have been able to grasp his ideas, because, like Sisu said, if you have a crop of squad playing to a certain style of football, for them to switch to suit another
one season.
Yeah, it's difficult. And at that one season, he's been able to promote them into the English top flight. So it tells you that the players probably he has at his disposal are very good to his ideas or have adapted quickly. And clearly that's evident with the way they've played. So, I mean, congratulations. The last time, I think I made mention about when they met up with Manchester City and Pep took him to the cleaners by beating 5-0 and things, and I was like, oh, this is the test they'll be facing in the Premier League. So, I mean, I just want to see how they fare in the Premier League better, because now they get to play the top clubs, and there will be days where you have to be pragmatic in the way you set up, because you look at the way they play. Yeah, it's very expansive, and you can't always be that way. So
it's also probably because there are some of them. Because the truth is, if you get relegated, by default, you probably have one of the better squads in the league, unless you lose
if a lot of your players don't leave.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, congratulations to him, and let's just see how he fares.
I want to see the players that they eventually recruit. I want to see the approach company takes, because he's played at the top in the Premier League. I want to see how he navigates his way around the Premier League. Will be interesting to see. Let's take another break here. When we come back, we have some action from the Italian Serie A, also the Spanish La Liga. Welcome back to Scorecard here on Citi TV. Let's now get to the Italian Serie A. Let's get to that game between Lecce and Napoli, and then we'll also do Lazio versus Juventus, and then we'll come back in studio to discuss. So big result there for Lazio. Mauricio Sarri's Lazio doing big things there. Just quick thoughts on that particular result.
For me, those were the two best teams in Italy after Napoli playing. So it was always going to be a cracker of a game. I think Lazio have been a bit more expansive and attacking, but their defending has been very impressive. I think it's a surprise because we don't know Sarri has been a top defensive coach. But if you look at Lazio's defensive record, amazing. So I really expected them to be difficult to beat, and they really showed it. They've had some impressive results. They've beaten Napoli, they've beaten Milan, they've beaten Inter, they've beaten Juventus.
They pick up draws against all the teams.
And they've beaten Roma twice. So they are a very impressive team. I expect them to be in the Champions League. The way I see it, Napoli and them are the only sureties for the Champions League. Then you have Roma, Milan, Inter, and I think Juventus still have an outside chance of finishing the top four. And considering the fact that they might even get their points back, it could be very likely they'll be in that top four. But assuming they don't even get their points back, I still think they can make top four. So I think it'll be a very interesting top four race in Serie A.
Let's get to the German Bundesliga. Borussia Dortmund were up against Union Berlin. Dortmund back to winning ways after getting hammered by Bayern Munich last week. And then Bayern themselves were up against Freiburg. Let's check out the highlights of those two games. Yes, so Bayern Munich winning, Borussia Dortmund winning. Just quick thoughts on those two games.
I mean, I'm just looking at the delayed striker. You know, at a point in time, I even forgot he even still played because, I mean, when we saw him at Juventus, I think he was quite brilliant. But, I mean, that's the quality he comes with, and I think that was a very good goal from.
In Germany, they scrutinize a lot. He and Upamecano have come under
a lot of scrutiny.
Yeah, sure.
I'll be honest, I don't like Upamecano. I think he makes too many mistakes. Honestly. I'm not a big fan
Oliver
of him.
Kahn and Salihamidzic have been scrutinizing their game in and out. The league has been under a lot of pressure because he came for big money. He's not really lived up. And if you look at the league, Bayern have let him goals in a lot of their matches. Champions League has been a little different. But I mean, head to head, it looks like this is one of the more competitive seasons. Dortmund to take it or Bayern to tip it as usual?
I think the Tuchel factor will play in more for Bayern. And I don't see Dortmund coming in. I think Bayern will neck this. They'll continue. I mean, it's not a different story with what they always do in the Bundesliga. So I don't see any place for Dortmund, to be honest.
Dortmund always flatter to deceive. Let's hope it's not that same case this season. Let's check out the last highlights of the night. It's between Real Madrid and Villarreal, ended in defeat for Real Madrid. There was a lot of drama in the game as well. Let's check this one out. So Chukwueze doing the magic there against Real Madrid. I'll just take concluding thoughts on that one. Samuel Chukwueze.
Yeah, it was a Chukwueze issue because even the second goal, he didn't get the assist, but it was his chaos that created it. Look, I think Madrid should have won that game based on the chances they created. We saw a lot of good chances. It's one of those things. It happens. It's one of those days. Look, but I think if you look at even some of the subs, they were 2-1 up. They took Benzema off. I think
focus on the Champions
League. There's the Champions League they're thinking about. There's a bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, bigger fish to fry. Just final words, 10 seconds before we go.
Yeah, I mean, like Susu said, it's just one of those things. I think that in Ancelotti's mind, he has his eyes set on the Champions League, and I think that is why he probably younged out some of his key players.
Real Madrid get tired of winning the Champions League.
That goal from Chukwueze, Charlie.
Even the first one, just ding, ding. Lovely stuff from the Nigerian. That's it from us here. It's an abridged show. I'm sure you were expecting an extra 30 minutes, but that's not how it goes today. It's the Easter edition, so pardon us if we chopped off a little bit of your fun. But it's been fun hanging out with Susu Graham and Gabriel Ofe. My name is Benjamin Inketia. Next week, same time, you know where to find us.